Before sunrise, long before the public wakes up, a quiet machine inside Louisiana's justice system begins to move. Paperwork is stamped. Names are checked. Doors open. And somewhere inside a county jail or a state prison, one inmate, sometimes dangerous, sometimes simply forgotten, is told to pack up. He doesn't know where he's going. He's only told one thing: you're being moved. But officers already know the destination. A place surrounded by fields. A place larger than Manhattan. A prison farm that has become one of the most feared institutions in America. Angola. The Louisiana State Penitentiary, the final stop in a system built to break people long before they arrive. This documentary pulls back the curtain on the hidden pipeline that sends men to the farm. How they're selected. Who makes the decision? Why some inmates vanish from their previous prisons overnight. And why, once they enter Angola's gates, most never return to a normal prison again. This is the unseen journey, the one the public never witnesses, inside the most secretive inmate transfer network in the American South. Welcome to the road of no return. Before we begin, tap like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us uncover the darkest corners of the prison system. Now let's step inside. The journey to Angola doesn't begin with a bus, a shackled inmate, or a lineup of correctional officers. It begins with a file. A simple manila folder, sometimes digital, sometimes still physical, resting on a desk inside a Louisiana Department of Public Safety and Corrections office. Inside that file is a name, a DOC number, and a detailed history of the inmate who may soon be transferred. Most people think prisoners end up at Angola because of the severity of their crimes. But the truth is far more complicated, and the decision is far more intentional. Every transfer starts with classification, a quiet process that determines who is safe to house where. Classification officers read disciplinary records, medical notes, psychological evaluations, gang affiliations, and even notes written by wardens from other prisons. A single sentence tends to influence others, non-compliant in group settings, or suspected gang leadership, can change everything. But Angola is not an ordinary prison. It is a farming operation, a working plantation, and a high-security facility all in one. So when officials create a transfer list, they aren't just looking for inmates who need punishment. They're looking for inmates who fit the system's needs. Men young enough to work the fields, strong enough to handle labor, or stable enough to function inside one of the largest prison compounds in America. Behind every selection, there is a strategic calculation. Some inmates arrive because they've proven dangerous in smaller prisons. Some arrive because they've exhausted disciplinary options elsewhere. Some arrive because Angola has room and other facilities don't. And some arrive simply because the system needs workers, inmates who can harvest crops, maintain buildings, run kitchens, or staff prison industries. This idea shocks many people, but Angola is not just a punishment facility. It is a small city where almost everything is done by inmates. The transfer pipeline keeps that city running. The final call is almost always made by people the inmate will never meet. Classification boards, regional administrators, and DOC leadership who look at a wall of names and must balance custody levels, labor needs, budget pressures, and institutional safety. It's a process without public oversight. No hearings, no appeals, no explanations. Once the decision is made, it moves silently through the system. A prison warden receives a quiet notification. Transportation officers are alerted days, sometimes hours, before the move. And the inmate? He learns last. Sometimes he's told at 2 a.m., sometimes during breakfast, sometimes right after a disciplinary infraction, when emotions are running high and tensions can escalate. But in every case, the message is simple and final. Pack up. You're being transferred. What makes these moments unsettling is that inmates rarely know where they're going. Rumors spread fast inside prison walls. Some inmates assume they're being moved to another local facility. Others fear the worst. Angola's name circulates in whispers, a place with a reputation older than most prisoners inside Louisiana's system. For decades, inmates have described the moment they hear they're going to Angola as a mix of anxiety and resignation. Angola is not like other prisons. Its size, its isolation, and its history create an entirely different atmosphere. Some inmates feel dread. Others feel anger. A few, surprisingly, feel relief, because for all its harshness, Angola can also offer structure, routine, and programs missing in chaotic, overcrowded parish jails. But the inmates' emotions don't matter to the system. Once the transfer order is approved, the machine moves automatically. Officers gather property lists. Medical staff review the inmate's health file. A transport coordinator schedules the trip, checking weather, available officers, and vehicle conditions. Everything becomes a checklist, precise, measured, and efficient. And yet, behind all this organization, the process remains human. Correctional officers sometimes feel conflicted. Many know the inmates personally. They have watched them struggle, fail, improve, relapse. Some officers believe an inmate is being sent away too quickly. Others think the move should have happened long ago. But the decision is rarely theirs to make. By the time the sun rises on the day of the transfer, the inmate's routine is already disrupted. He may be woken early, pulled from a dorm or cell, placed into a holding area, and told to wait. Hours may pass with no explanation. This waiting, this uncertainty, is part of the psychological weight of transfer. The inmate realizes he is no longer just serving time. He is being absorbed deeper into a system that controls every step of his movement. Meanwhile, the officers preparing the transfer understand the stakes. Moving an inmate to Angola is not the same as transferring someone to a local facility. It requires strict documentation, secure restraints, and coordination with state-level transportation teams. Everyone involved knows the reputation Angola carries, not just in the inmate population, but in the corrections world. For staff, Angola is both respected and feared. Respected for its organization and scale. Feared for the pressure it puts on inmates and officers alike. By mid-morning or late afternoon, depending on the schedule, the inmate is escorted to the transport vehicle. A bus or a van, often modified for security. Metal mesh covers the windows. Cages divide the interior. The seats are bolted down. The air feels cold and mechanical. As the inmate boards, he knows instinctively that this is not a normal transfer. This is a relocation of his entire life. Outside the gates of the sending facility, the world looks ordinary. Families driving to work, kids on bikes, stores opening for the day. But inside that bus, something profound happens. The inmate crosses an invisible line, moving from one chapter of incarceration into another, far more controlled one. He is now on the road of no return, a path shaped not by his choices, but by decisions made in quiet offices, based on paperwork he never sees. This is the hidden beginning of Angola's inmate pipeline. For most people, morning begins with sunlight. For an inmate being transferred to Angola, morning begins with a knock on the cell door, firm, controlled, and unmistakable. It's the kind of knock that instantly tells an inmate something is different. Officers don't speak yet. They don't reveal the destination. They simply give the universal command. Roll it up. Let's go. Inside prison, those 4 words can change everything. The inmate stands up slowly, the reality setting in. His heart is already racing, even though he doesn't know where he's being taken. The officers outside the door maintain the same professional rhythm they use in every high-risk movement. Their tone is neutral, their eyes alert. They're not there to explain, they're there to execute. The inmate gathers his property. One mesh bag, a few photos, letters, state-issued clothes, maybe a Bible, maybe nothing at all. Some inmates move silently. Others breathe hard, trying to keep their nerves from showing. A few try to ask questions. Where am I going? Is this permanent? Did something happen? The officers don't answer. Not because they don't know, but because they aren't allowed to say. Transfers, especially those headed toward Angola, operate on strict information control. The fewer people who know the details, the safer the process is for everyone involved. Inside prisons, rumors travel faster than truth. If inmates learn someone is going to Angola, emotions can shift quickly: jealousy, anger, fear, or even a last-minute attempt to resist. So silence becomes part of the procedure. The inmate is moved into a holding area. There are usually others there. Inmates with packed bags, sitting quietly, staring at the wall, processing their own uncertainty. No one knows where the others are headed. No one wants to guess wrong. Some assume they're going to a medical facility. Others think they're being moved to a closer prison. Some whisper, "Man, I think this is the Angola run." But nobody says it loudly, because saying that word is like dropping a weight into the room. Angola carries history. It carries stories, some overstated, some very real. It carries the reputation of being both the harshest and the most structured institution in Louisiana. Inmates understand this deeply. While the inmates wait, the correctional facility springs into a quiet operational mode behind the scenes. Officers coordinate with transportation teams. Supervisors finalize paperwork. A sergeant double-checks restraint orders. If the inmate has medical conditions, nurses confirm what medications must travel with him. If he has gang affiliations, transportation officers adjust seating assignments and security measures. This entire preparation phase might seem bureaucratic, but in corrections, one missing piece of information can turn a simple transfer into a serious incident. Officers know this. They have seen things go wrong before. Arguments erupting in holding rooms, inmates refusing to move, last-second fights, panic attacks, fainting, emotional breakdowns. So they follow every step with precision. When the transportation unit arrives, the energy shifts. These officers are different from regular facility staff. They wear tactical gear, carry advanced restraints, and move with synchronized, practiced motions. Transport officers are specialists, trained to handle inmates who may be unpredictable, manipulative, desperate, or simply terrified of the unknown. They walk into the holding area with calm authority. Clipboards out. Names confirmed. Orders reviewed. One officer reads aloud. State transfer. High custody. Full restraints. This is when the inmate finally learns the truth, not verbally, but through the procedure. He is ordered to stand. His hands are cuffed. A waist chain is locked around him. Leg irons are placed at his ankles. Sometimes a black box is added over the handcuffs to restrict movement even further. These are transport restraints, used only for long-distance, high-security movements. When an inmate feels that many restraints at once, he understands immediately that this isn't a routine relocation. This is something bigger. As inmates are lined up, one by one, the atmosphere becomes thick with unspoken tension. Some stare straight ahead, accepting whatever comes next. Others close their eyes, bargaining silently with themselves. A few keep looking toward the officers, hoping for even the smallest clue about their destination. But transport teams don't break protocol. They escort inmates through side hallways and service corridors, routes the general population never sees. The facility temporarily freezes movement to keep each escort clean and safe. When the inmates reach the sally port, the reinforced exit gate, they see the transport vehicles waiting. These aren't regular vans. These are secure transfer units, modified for inmate movement. Reinforced doors, internal compartments, steel mesh over windows, cage dividers separating custody levels, anchor points for leg shackles. The inmate notices something else. The vehicle has no clear view of the outside world. No scenery, only blurred shapes beyond the mesh. Once inside, he is seated and secured. Officers clip restraints to bolted steel loops on the floor. It's uncomfortable, but intentional. This minimizes risk of escape, assault, or injury during sudden stops. The engine starts. Doors lock with a metallic thud. The outside gate opens. This moment, when the vehicle rolls forward, is the true beginning of the transfer. Inside the vehicle, the inmate's mind races. He might replay old disciplinary reports, wondering if they sealed his fate. He might think about unfinished programs, abandoned friendships, or rivals left behind. He might think about Angola's stories, the farming fields, the size of the compound, the strict hierarchy inside. Some inmates feel fear. Some feel anger. Some feel numbness. But one emotion sits heavier than the rest: the fear of the unknown. Meanwhile, the officers in the front compartment focus on the road and the mission. They have their own silent responsibilities, maintaining vigilance, monitoring inmate behavior, tracking the route, staying in communication with headquarters. Transfers are not just routine for them. They're an operation requiring full attention. As the vehicle leaves the city limits and moves onto the long rural roads of Louisiana, the inmate feels time slow down. Every turn feels like it leads deeper into isolation. Every mile feels like a step towards something permanent. He still doesn't know the truth, not officially, but deep down, he feels it. He's on the road that ends at Angola. The quiet morning is over. Now the journey truly begins. The highway stretches for miles, cutting through rural Louisiana like a quiet lifeline connecting towns most people never see. For the inmate, though this road feels like it's carrying him into another world, slowly, deliberately, and without any chance of turning back. Inside the transport vehicle, the air is cold and stale. The humming vibration of the engine fills the silence. There are no conversations between inmates. The restraints, the cages, and the uncertainty make speaking difficult. Even breathing feels heavier. Every few minutes, the transport team performs subtle checks. A glance into the rear compartment, a call over the radio, a confirmation of position and time. These officers have driven this route hundreds of times, yet they never let routine weaken their awareness. Transfers can go wrong in seconds. A medical emergency, an argument between inmates, a sudden attempt to break free from restraints. Even a vehicle breakdown can create risk if the inmates inside sense an opportunity. But today, the road is quiet. As the miles pass, the scenery changes. Houses grow sparse. Gas stations become fewer. Trees begin to swallow the horizon. The inmate feels the isolation tightening around him. He hasn't been told where he's going, but the landscape is beginning to answer the question on its own. This is farm country. This is state land. This is Angola territory. The more the vehicle travels north, the more the inmate's mind drifts. Not to freedom, not to hopes or dreams, but to memories of stories he heard long before this day arrived. Rumors of the fields, rumors of the heat, rumors of the strict routines, rumors of a place so big it feels like a world, not a prison. The truth is, Angola's reputation begins long before an inmate ever reaches its gates. It lives in whispers across every jail in Louisiana. Some inmates talk about harsh labor. Others talk about the size, 18,000 acres, larger than many towns. Some describe the isolation. How, once inside, you are surrounded by farmland, fences, towers, and miles of open land with nowhere to run. It's like going to another planet, one older inmate once said. And now, the inmate being transferred feels the gravity of that planet pulling him in. The officers in the front compartment see none of the inmates' inner turmoil. They stick to their procedures. Every checkpoint is logged. Every stop is calculated. If they pull into a rest area, inmates stay secured inside the vehicle. Officers take turns stepping out, ensuring the vehicle is never left unguarded. Even small moments along the route feel controlled. When the vehicle slows down near a small town, the inmate tries to peek through the mesh. He sees ordinary life, people pumping gas, an elderly man sweeping his porch, kids walking with backpacks. This brief glimpse of normalcy stings. These people have no idea that a high-security transfer is passing through. To them, it's just another van on the highway. To the inmate inside, it's the last road he will travel freely, even while shackled, in a long time. As the drive continues, the road becomes narrower. Fields stretch endlessly in both directions. The inmate recognizes none of the landscape, but the officers do. The closer they get to Angola, the more their posture changes. They sit straighter, talk less, focus harder. Angola isn't just another destination. It's a place officers respect. A place with a long history, some good, some difficult. A place with its own rules, its own hierarchy, its own rhythm. A transfer to Angola is not taken lightly. After hours of travel, the vehicle approaches the small rural area near St. Francisville. This region is quiet, covered in greenery and broken up by long dirt paths, old fences, and distant farm buildings. Many locals know Angola only as the farm, the way their grandparents called it. For the inmate, the realization becomes sharp. This is where the stories came from. This is where everything changes. The vehicle finally turns onto Louisiana Highway 66, a road known for one thing. It leads to Angola and nowhere else. There are no detours, no other destinations, no traffic passing through. When a vehicle enters Highway 66, everyone knows where it's going. Officers often describe this stretch as the silent mile. It's the moment they feel the tension inside the vehicle peak. The inmate feels it too. The road is surrounded by forest and large open spaces. It feels like entering a restricted zone. Even the air seems different, heavier, quieter. If the inmate had any hope of going somewhere else, that hope disappears now. He is headed to Angola. There is no more doubt. As the vehicle moves deeper down Highway 66, the first security signs appear, warnings about weapons, restricted entry, state property, and authorized vehicles only. To most people, These warnings are intimidating. To an inmate, they are final. The transport team radios ahead. Unit inbound. High custody. Gates prep. This is standard procedure, but the inmate hears the tone. Calm, professional, certain. The officers know exactly what they're doing. Minutes later, the vehicle slows down. The road curves slightly, and then the inmate sees it. The outer property line of Angola. Miles of open land. Wide fields. Perimeter fencing. Watchtowers standing tall against the sky. Signs warning against trespassing or unauthorized approach. Angola's land feels endless, like a world closed off from the rest of society. The bus passes through a long approach road flanked by fields. In the distance, the inmate sees horses, tractors, and men working the land under officer supervision. These aren't guards, they're inmate workers. Even from far away, the sight sends a shock into the inmate's chest. These are the field lines he heard about. This is the labor he's been warned of. The officers notice the inmate watching. They don't say anything. They've seen the expression before. Every inmate arriving at Angola has that moment where reality hits with full force. No turning back. No alternative. This is it. The vehicle approaches the main checkpoint, a large gate staffed by tower officers and perimeter guards. Weapons are visible. Radios crackle. Officers walk around the vehicle inspecting it thoroughly before the inner gates open. For a moment, everything stops. The engine idles. No one speaks. The inmate hears only his own breathing and the faint sound of keys outside. Then the gate opens, and the bus rolls into the main intake compound of Angola Prison, the largest maximum security facility in the United States. This is the moment inmates describe as the true point of no return. The long road is over. The isolation is complete. Now begins the next phase, the one few outsiders ever see. Angola's internal intake system. The moment the transport vehicle passes fully through the gate, the inmate enters one of the most controlled, calculated, and efficient intake systems in the entire American prison network. Angola has been processing incoming prisoners for generations. The system is old, refined, and built with one purpose: strip away uncertainty and replace it with structure. The vehicle comes to a stop near the Sally Port, a fortified tunnel-like entrance where officers on both sides coordinate every movement. The inmate feels the vehicle sink slightly as the engine shuts off. The doors remain locked while command staff confirm the transport logs, security levels, and expected arrivals. Then comes the metallic clank. The door unlatches. The outside air rushes in, hot, humid, carrying the smell of farmland mixed with steel and concrete. A transport officer announces sharply, "Inmates, remain still until instructed." No one moves. No one breathes too deeply. Even seasoned inmates feel the weight of this place. One by one, names are called. When the inmate hears he is guided out of the vehicle with controlled precision. Officers maintain a tight formation around him, not aggressive, but efficient. Angola's intake officers are known for moving with a steady rhythm, a rhythm built from decades of experience handling thousands of new arrivals. The inmate steps onto the ground. His restraints clank softly. Tower officers watch from above, rifles slung, observing every motion. Inside this environment, nothing is chaotic. Everything feels measured. The first stop is identification. Inside a concrete intake room, officers record the inmate's name, DOC number, transport origin, custody level, and any behavioral flags. Cameras mounted high on the walls capture every angle. The inmate stands before a steel counter while officers review documents that decide where he will live within this massive compound. In Louisiana, intake is not simply about confirming identity. It is about assessing risk and predicting behavior. Disciplinary history, criminal background, gang links, mental health notes, medical needs, work capability, education level, previous incidents involving violence. All of this forms the inmate's Angola profile. Behind the scenes, classification teams use this information to decide whether the inmate will be placed in a dorm, a cell block, a working camp, or a restricted housing unit. For some inmates, especially those with violent histories, Angola may be the most structured and stable environment they've ever experienced. For others, especially first-time arrivals with no major disciplinary issues, the intake system can feel overwhelming. After identification comes the medical phase. The inmate is escorted down a hallway into a small clinical area. Nurses examine him quickly but thoroughly. Blood pressure, temperature, weight, visible injuries, and any conditions that could affect his housing assignment. Angola has its own hospital on site, but only select inmates are sent there immediately. Most go through standard intake unless they are seriously ill. If the inmate has medications, nurses verify them. If he has untreated wounds or chronic illnesses, they document them. If he shows signs of distress, they note it for mental health evaluation. Everything is recorded. Everything becomes part of his Angola life. After medical intake, the inmate enters the property processing area. This is where personal belongings, whatever survived the previous facility, are inspected, searched, logged, and either approved or confiscated. Most inmates arrive with very little. A few photographs, a small stack of letters, a pair of shoes, sometimes nothing more than the clothes on their back. To an outsider, these items may seem insignificant. To the inmate, they are pieces of identity, pieces of a life that now feels distant. The property officer works efficiently, marking every detail, sealing bags, assigning storage numbers. Any contraband, even minor items, is removed without discussion. After property comes one of the most psychologically intense moments of intake. The strip search. It is cold. It is clinical. It is unavoidable. The inmate stands in a tiled room. Officers give commands with calm, steady voices. This process is not meant to humiliate. It is meant to keep the institution secure. But no matter the intention, inmates often describe this moment as the point where their previous identity fully dissolves. When it is over, the inmate receives standard issue clothing: pants, shirt, socks, boots, and a thin mattress roll. Everything is labeled with numbers, not names. The next phase is mental health screening. This is a short interview in a small office. A counselor asks questions about mood, stability, past trauma, medication, and coping ability. The inmate's answers matter, not just for treatment, but for placement. Angola houses thousands of men, and the system must ensure no one is placed in an environment that triggers violence or vulnerability. Some inmates speak openly. Some shut down. Some offer only one-word answers. But regardless of how much they share, the intake team reads far more than words. They read posture, tone, eye contact, and the subtle signs of internal pressure. After mental health comes the longest part: classification review. This is where Angola determines where the inmate will belong. In the classification area, officers and administrators examine all the data collected in the last hour. Disciplinary history, recent behavior, sentence length, escape risk, gang affiliation, medical needs, work assignments, program eligibility, psychological recommendations. Angola is not one giant prison population. It is a network of distinct camps, dorms, cell blocks, and specialized units, each with different custody levels and responsibilities. Some areas are high security. Some are working camps. Some are reserved for long-timers with stable behavior. Some are for inmates who require close supervision. Placement is not random. Placement is strategic. While classification reviews the file, the inmate sits on a bench in a controlled waiting area. Officers walk past him, radios buzzing, paperwork shifting, doors opening and closing. The sounds of intake blend into a single rhythm, the rhythm of a system built to absorb new arrivals seamlessly. Finally, an officer returns and speaks the words that shape the inmate's new reality. You're being assigned to. Where he goes next will define his daily life, his routine, his work, his safety, his challenges, his opportunities, his new relationships, and his risk. Some placements feel lenient. Some feel harsh. Some feel like a warning. Earn your way out, or prove you can handle this environment. Once the assignment is given, officers escort the inmate through a long corridor leading deeper into the prison grounds. The hallways echo with voices, boots, distant gates slamming shut. At the end of this corridor lies a set of doors leading into the massive world of Angola, a world of fields, camps, wings, towers, and thousands of men living under the same unforgiving sky. This is the moment the intake process ends. This is the moment Angola life begins. When the final intake doors open and the inmate steps fully into Angola's internal grounds, he enters a world unlike anything he has seen before. There is no dramatic announcement, no speech, no orientation session. Instead, the reality of Angola reveals itself slowly, in layers, through the air, the land, and the movement of the men who already live here. The first thing he notices is the size. Angola isn't a prison with one central yard or a few clustered buildings. It is a vast sprawl, 18,000 acres of farmland, camps, workshops, dorms, cell blocks, and long gravel roads that stretch beyond the eye's reach. The inmate sees tractors in the distance, groups of men working under officer supervision, and tall watchtowers that break the horizon line like sentinels. This is not confinement within walls. This is confinement within land. The inmate's escort moves him toward his assigned housing unit. Angola has multiple camps, each functioning like a separate mini-prison within the superstructure. Some are more open and community-based. Others are stricter, heavily secured, or built to manage specific kinds of inmates. The inmate doesn't know which environment he is walking into. He only knows that Angola has a reputation for order and routine, a place where unpredictability is swallowed by the sheer scale of the system. As he enters his assigned camp, the first thing he feels is eyes. Hundreds of them. Inmates who have lived here for years, some for decades, scan every new arrival. Not out of malice, but out of instinct. In a prison this large, information is survival. Everyone wants to know, where is he from? What's his charge? What kind of man is he? Is he trouble? Is he useful? Will he fit in? But outwardly, the environment is quiet. Angola is not a chaotic prison. Its size, structure, and history enforce a level of discipline that surprises new arrivals. An older inmate sweeping the walkway barely pauses before continuing. Another tending a flower bed nods silently. A small group sits under a shade tree, talking in low tones, not bothering to stand. The inmate realizes something. Angola runs like a city. A controlled, highly monitored, deeply organized city, but a city nonetheless. Officers escort him through the camp corridors. Some housing units feel like long dormitories, open and communal. Others consist of rows of cells, built for men who require tighter supervision. Every unit has its own rhythm, some filled with chatter, some nearly silent. Once inside, the inmate is shown his bed, a simple steel frame, a thin mattress, a shelf for property, and a small space that now belongs to him. The rules here are clear. Keep your area clean, respect the daily schedule, follow officer orders, avoid unnecessary conflict. Angola does not tolerate disorder. It can't. With so many men and so much land, structure is the only way the place works. As he puts his mattress roll down, he feels the anxiety slowly shift into something else. Acceptance mixed with cautious alertness. This is his new environment. This is where he must learn to move, think, work, and survive. Only a few minutes later, another officer enters the dorm with a simple instruction. Orientation. Let's go. Orientation isn't a classroom. It's Angola's unwritten education, delivered through routines, officer commands, and observations of the men who have survived the farm for years. Work assignments are a major part of this orientation. Angola is a working prison, and labor is woven into its identity. Some inmates work in the fields, planting, harvesting, cutting grass, clearing brush. Others work in workshops, kitchens, laundry operations, maintenance crews, or prison industries. A select few handle skilled jobs like welding, carpentry, auto repair, or even dog training. Where the inmate ends up depends on his classification, his behavior, and the needs of the institution. But one reality hits him quickly. At Angola, everyone works. The routine is strict. Wake up early. Stand for count. Eat. Report to work. Return. Eat. Lock down. Lights out. Every day follows the same pattern, with minor variations. For many inmates, this structure becomes both a comfort and a weight. It keeps the mind steady, but it also emphasizes the long, unchanging stretch of time ahead. The new arrival sees inmates moving with discipline, lining up for chow, forming work crews, reporting to supervisors, exchanging brief words under officer supervision. There is noise, but not chaos. Movement, but not confusion. Angola has been operating for over a century, and its routines have hardened into something that feels almost automatic. Over the next hours, the inmate slowly absorbs the unspoken rules. Don't ask too many questions. Don't show aggression unless you intend to escalate. Don't get involved in conflicts that aren't yours. Don't disrespect officers or inmates trusted by the system. Don't act like you run anything. And above all, don't forget where you are. This is Angola, a place where mistakes don't disappear and where the system watches with a quiet, constant presence. By nightfall, the inmate lies on his new bed, staring at the dim ceiling. Outside, the faint noise of boots, radios, and distant voices blends into a continuous background hum. Farther out, beyond the camp, he knows there are miles of fields, horses, towers, and land that stretches endlessly toward the Mississippi River. The reality of the day settles in. He has been transported, processed, assigned, absorbed into Angola's massive machinery. What started with a file on a desk, a quiet decision made by officials he'll never meet, has ended here, in a prison farm larger than any cage he ever imagined. The journey is over. The destination is final. The road of no return has delivered him to a world built to hold men for years, sometimes lifetimes, under the open sky of a place that feels both vast and inescapable. As the lights fully dim and silence falls over the camp, the inmate takes a slow breath. Tomorrow, the routine begins. Tomorrow, he becomes part of Angola's rhythm, another man in a long line of men who arrived silently and discovered that this place has its own way of shaping a person. For now, he closes his eyes. He has reached the end of the journey and the beginning of a new reality inside the farm. The journey to Angola begins long before the gates come into view. It starts with paperwork, quiet decisions, and a system that moves men through its channels without fanfare or announcement. Most of the world never sees this process. Most never hear the engines, the morning knocks, or the silence inside a transport van rolling through rural Louisiana. But for the inmate who arrives at Angola, the experience becomes a turning point, a shift from uncertainty into a world defined by routine, structure, and sheer scale. A prison larger than towns, a farm that never sleeps, a place where history, discipline, and isolation merge into a reality few outsiders could ever imagine. This documentary followed that hidden journey, from the moment a file was opened, to the morning the inmate was told to roll it up, to the long road through the countryside, to the intake machine that absorbs thousands, and finally, to the life that begins inside the farm. For some, Angola becomes a test. For others, a routine. For many, a reminder of the choices and the systems that led them here. Most people will never witness this transfer pipeline. But now, you have seen the road that shapes the lives of men sent to one of America's most feared and complex prisons. Thank you for watching this journey into the hidden world behind Angola's gates. Thanks for watching, like, share, and subscribe, and stay tuned for more real stories from inside America's prison system.